add the single sprite moving around the screen. We iterated the melon sprite 50 times randomly throughout the game world, and when we collide with it, it kills the melon. Now you could obviously do it opposite. You can kill the pineapple, whoever you like. So you can get creative when you actually start making a game. So what I want to do this time around, is I want to move this text so that it's out of the middle of the screen. We'll just put it at the top, and then we'll also add a score. We'll add score text to the top left corner, a string there, and we'll make it so that every time we collide with the melon, it adds to our score by 1. So we'll head back to brackets into our game here, and I want to move that text, that pineapple in space text, to a better location. So this is where I create it. So I'm simply going to put it, we'll say game.world.center x. We'll leave it there, and then for our y coordinate, we'll put it at 10, so that it's toward the top. If we save that there, it should appear up toward the top. There we go. All right, so now we want to add in our text. So the first thing that we're going to do is at the top, we want to make 3 variables. Variable 1 will be our score, and we're going to set that to equal to 0, so that every time our score sets, it's always to 0, especially if you have a click function that refreshes the page or restarts it. So we'll add that to 0. Second variable we want to make is score string, and this will be the string that is actually the string of text that will actually be on the screen, and we'll set that equal to empty quotes, no space, and a semicolon, and our final one will be score text. So the actual text itself, what will it be, what kind of style, that sort of thing. So the first thing we want to do is we'll come to our create function here. We don't have to load anything in. At the bottom here, underneath our melons group for loop, we will add score string. We're going to set that equal to score colon, and we'll add a space before the next quote. Close that out. Then we'll add our score text. We'll add that. We'll equal that to game.add.text. We'll set that to coordinates 10, 10. And so what this will be score string above plus our score variable. And so we'll give that font size, we'll say 34 pixels. And we'll give it a color of, let's say number, so we'll make it white. You can obviously go in and change that, use hexadecimal number, either way it'll work. So there is our score string. So now what we want to do is anytime that the pineapple collides with the melon, we want to add to the score. So what we're going to do is that will be done within our collision function down here, collision handler. So down in the collision handler, we're going to add in, so anytime pineapple hits melon, we'll kill the melon, and we want our score to increase by 1. So we'll simply hit score, there, that's our variable, plus plus, so it'll increase by 1 every time. Now what we want to do is we want to add to that, we want to add the content of what we created here for our score string and score text to the screen, and we want it to update with every collision. So we'll call that score text dot content. We'll set that equal to our score string plus score. So we save that, refresh our page. We say score at the top. It is automatically set at 0. Our title's at the top too. So anytime we collide with a melon, the score will increase by 1. You can have it increase by whatever you want. So in this case, it's increasing by 1. Now, if you noticed, when the pineapple is floating around the screen, there are some instances where it may not collide directly. Or for instance, if I change the size, if I change the size of the melon, let's say I scale it to 2. This is something to just keep in mind. So the melons are much bigger. But as you can see here, the pineapple is touching it. so the collision doesn't look quite right. Anytime this happens, there's a cool way within Phaser to sort of debug that, and that's just with a simple render function. So what you're going to do is you'll come back into your Phaser game. Up top with our first Phaser function that initiates Phaser, we're going to also add a render to the top. And then, way down at the bottom, we'll add a render function. Open up our brackets and close them. And so within here, we want to create a quad tree. And all a quad tree does is breaks up your game screen into quadrants, but at the same time, it surrounds each of the sprites with the size of the body that the game, the code recognizes. So obviously here, the size of the melon isn't recognized for collision. So an interesting way or a neat way to test out what that size actually looks like is just to create the quad tree. So in the game render, we'll type in game debug dot render quad tree. We'll add game dot physics dot quad tree. So this would obviously be a tool for debugging purposes. It is something that you might want to comment out when you want your game to be played by others. You obviously aren't going to leave this in, but it is good for debugging and maybe resizing your images. So it might be more useful to create an image with the size that you're going to want prior to loading it in, because you do lose some of that collision effectiveness when you scale it in Phaser. So if we refresh this, we should see our quad tree. So there it is. And if you notice, inside the melon, there's only that top square. That's what Phaser in the computer will read when the pineapple collides with it. So that's why this pineapple is not colliding with it, but as soon as I move further to the left, the square of the pineapple hits the square of the melon and it kills it. So just a interesting little tip when it comes to debugging when your games get more complicated. So go ahead and add a sprite group however many times you want across the screen, add collision, and add the score.